Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. We're looking at the wholesale purges that we've seen in many sectors in Turkey following last Friday's bloody coup attempt that left more than 200 dead. Scores have been detained. Many more have been sacked from jobs, like in the police, all the way to education, judges. With us from Istanbul, Galip Dalay of the SETA think tank. Welcome back as well. From the southern Turkish city of Adana, Gökçe Piskin, member of the opposition CHP party in parliament. Emre Demir is with us in the studio. Of the French edition of Zaman newspaper. And from Brussels, the former EU ambassador to Turkey, Marc Pierini, speaking Monday night in Taksim Square, where his supporters have been gathering every night since the coup attempt, and will do so for a week at least. The president talked of reinstating the death penalty and went back to the plan to develop Gezi Park, a plan that brought the opposition into the streets 3 years ago.
Let me first tell the good news to our brothers demonstrating in Taksim Square. The military barracks in Taksim will be built in its original style, whether they want it or not. And do you know what will be built there? We will build a history museum. We will build a city museum. And right behind these historical walls, God willing, we will build Taksim Mosque. The project is ready.
Gökçe Piskin, what's your reaction?
Fascist manner of the ruling party brought the situation to this day. So unfortunately, there are lessons to be learned, because all of the actions have some kind of results, like in terms of public, in terms of politics. Why is this? I mean, what is the relation between the Gezi Park and this coup? And we really don't understand. It's very dangerous. The witch hunt has begun. Human rights violations should be watched very carefully. The way to not let this coup happen again is to enhance democracy once and for all, and to rebuild the institutions one by one in the on a value-based manner. So this is very wrong. This is not going to make things better. We are watching carefully, but all that is going to be done with this manner is, I don't know, there's more clashes in the street, bringing people who have been united against the coup. Right now, these kind of talks will divide them. There is a unity against the coup at the moment. And I highly criticize the manner of the president, unfortunately.
Galip Dalay, your reaction, because you heard there Gökçe talk about a witch hunt in this instant. You yourself mentioning how all parties have been united against this coup, saying something like that you're going to develop Gezi Park at this point in time. Isn't that going to break that national unity?
Well, I mean, let's break this into two parts. Firstly, you are using the wrong title for me. I am research director at Al Sharq Forum. Okay, on the witch hunt part, the question is that first and foremost, it's not only there was a coup attempt, but also this group was a designated terrorist organization by Turkey. And the work on this group has been, in different ministry, has been ongoing for quite some time. So it's not just like within the 2 or 3 days, people made up all these names. There has been a process, there has been phases, there have been waves against certain elements of this group within the different institution or different sector of the public. But now, after the coup, they just speed up the process. So it's not like a work of 1 or 2 days. It has been designated terrorist organization, and this has done in a unanimity. The chief of staff is on the same page. The police is on the same page. Like the major political parties are on the same page. That's beside the point. Secondly, when it comes to Gezi Park protests, well, definitely, I mean, it's not very politically popular right now to bring up the question of developing the Gezi Park protests, but that is a separate issue than what we are talking about, this Gulenist coup. The Gezi Park protest, as I said, the political wisdom of it can be perfectly questionable, and I think right now.
But is there a sense that the president is going to railroad through all the policies he wants, taking advantage of this national unity?
No, well, just be specific. What do you mean by the old policies that he wants?
Well, for instance,
change.
More constitutional powers for himself. For instance, what we just heard him talk about there.
Constitutional change is something about the arithmetic, and it's a debate that has been going on for a couple of years. We know that the AK Party wants to change the political system from the parliamentary to executive presidency, and there is nothing that indicates that the parliamentary system is better than executive presidency, and there is nothing that that indicates that the executive presidency is better than the parliament. The question is, how you are going to do it, what kind of check and balances that you are going to put into it. And the AK Party has previously pledged that it is going to introduce its proposal on the executive presidency, which includes all the check and balances. So we need to see what kind of the proposal that they are going to put on table, and then discuss it from there. Right now, one cannot be categorically against the change of the system for a very simple reason. Both are legitimate system, and if the governing party with a significant majority within the parliament thinks that it will serve Turkey better, and it pledged in its election manifesto many times that it will change the political system. So I don't see any reason describing this as undemocratic.
Emre Demir?
Look, what I would say that we know at least that Erdogan is capitalizing on this purge over state and the civil society to have beyond coup plotters. I don't think that we have that much Gulenists within the state, given the fact that since 3 years we have been massive purges within the state against this Gulenist group. Over 40,000 people, officers, have been already purged, dismissed, etc. And within the civil society, over 5,000 people have been arrested because of being a sympathizer of Gulen. So there had been a massive purge. And he was talking about the educational institutions. Every single educational institution within Turkey has been seized by the government. Every media group, thousands of businessmen who had ties with Gulen had been seized. So there was already a war against Gulen, and I don't think that we have still over 40,000 people, officers within the state. So I think that this Gulenist is used as a pretext to have much more grip within the state, especially at the judiciary. When you look at the Constitutional Court or the critical institutions like Constitutional Court, you can see 2 members of the court has been arrested. So you can see that we will have a total control. Erdogan will have a total control over the state institutions, but we will have a weaker state. What we are assisting a stronger Erdogan, but a weaker institutional structure for the Turkish state.
All right. Lots of reactions have been coming in on the hashtag F24debate. One of them comparing it to the Reichstag fire. That's something we saw in Politico in an article by Matthew Karnichnig on Monday. He headlined his story, Erdogan's Reichstag fire, an allusion to 1933 when the newly elected German Chancellor Adolf Hitler used to fire the German parliament to serve as an excuse to suspend civil liberties. A sentiment that seems to be shared by many in Brussels, with more than 6,000 detained in the first 24 hours that followed the coup attempt. The EU's Austrian commissioner in charge of eventual enlargement to Turkey cast doubt over the swiftness of the reaction.
At least that something has been prepared. I mean, the lists are available already after the event, indicates that this was prepared, that at a certain moment it should be used.
Marc Perrini, do you share that sentiment?
Well, let's start from the end objective. The president of Turkey wants a change in the constitution where he has an executive presidency. His view of democracy is a majoritarian one. He said it again a couple of days ago. I was elected with 52%, which is a rather high score in Western standards. And his party was more or less defeated in June last year, but won in November with more or less 49%, which, given the electoral system, gives them a small majority. Given the constitution, the provision to change the constitution, the president at the moment doesn't have either the 60% or the two-thirds majority to change the constitution. So how do you get from here to there? Well, after the coup failure, you have a very emotional situation, and obviously you're going to have to restore law and order one way or the other, hopefully within a due judicial process, I would say. But we're going to see a very large trial of a number of people, military and non-military. That will be the first thing. In parallel, the second thing will be a vigorous approach from the Turkish government to the US to extradite Fethullah Gulen, or at least to put him under house arrest in the US. And the Prime Minister today announced that he was sending lots of evidence, more evidence than needed, to that effect. We'll see what that goes. Then probably as soon as tomorrow, maybe a little later, we'll have a government proposal to reinstate the death penalty. This will obviously create waves with the EU or with the US, but after all, this is a crisis situation, as Galip said earlier. So, you know, why not propose that, and we'll see what the Parliament will say. All of that will create a more tense context with the West, with the US and the EU. But in parallel, as we all know, and we'll see that in a meeting in a few days or a few weeks, there is a rapprochement with Russia to counterbalance all this. So in the current emotional context, what could occur in the next few weeks or 2 months, perhaps, is either a new snap election or, if the numbers are there, a referendum to take the executive presidency to the public.
You think
that is the normal course of action, which has, in a way, been facilitated by this unexpected coup attempt.
A referendum or snap elections? Gökçe Piskin, do you see that happening?
When taking the executive presidency to referenda, the situation clearly enhances the chances of getting the full support. However, I think it will be underestimating the coup if you just say it was a fake coup attempt to make this happen. So, of course, as a result, it's going to happen, obviously. But in my opinion, it would be underestimating the issue if you just say that it was just fake.
So you're expecting there to be a referendum or a snap election soon?
Exactly.
Emre Demir?
I agree. Within months, we will have an election or a constitutional referendum, and he will win. Erdogan will win.
Galip Dalay?
Comparing what is going to happen to the Reichstag, like tweeting is extremely irresponsible, and also reciting this on TV and saying that it is being shared by a wide number of people within in Brussels is irresponsible, to say the least. Because this is particularly one of the reasons why Turkey should not take Brussels seriously. If this is the sentiment that comes after after a coup, particularly given the fact that the Brussels and EU and European countries had an abhorrible stance on the Egyptian coup when 50,000 people were put under the arrest. And
but how do you round up 6,000 people in less than 24 hours without knowing who they are? There must have been lists.
Well, for a very simple reason. Reichstag is the right definition. And this is a designated terrorist organization, that a fight that has been going on for a couple of years, that we know that there was also an investigation ready for 1,700. So, like, to make comparison between this and to a Nazi and an abhorrible regime, to say the least, is irresponsible, and putting it on a respectable television channel is another irresponsible act to my best knowledge. When it comes to the popularity of the Erdogan, well, the question is that any leader that defeats a coup orchestrated by a designated terrorist organization will be popular, and any popular leader would like to increase their public vote and their public support. So if he does it, it's extremely legitimate. If extremely political, it's extremely democratic. There is nothing wrong in it. If there's anything wrong, the question needs to be put to the Gulenists. Why do you commit a coup and then you give this chance to the president to be even more popular?
Galip Dalay, to Marc Pirini's point that...
Galip, you're forgetting...
Go ahead, Marc Pirini.
Galip, you're forgetting one point here. One, the article on Politico, which has been referred to, it's something that comes from freedom of expression. So I don't think you can blame any EU institution or any other person than the journalist who's decided to write that, but he's free to say that.
But the
Number
presenter...
two, within hours of the coup, and well before we knew where the coup was going, the president and the government of Turkey got the full support of all the EU leaders and the US president, because this is rule of law. So I don't think that was irresponsible. The support that Turkey got was unanimous in the Western camp.
Can I come in? Can I come in?
Please.
Well, first, I was reacting to the presenter saying a sentiment that is widely shared in Brussels. So if this is the sentiment that is widely shared in Brussels, not not specifically the article itself, but if this is the sentiment widely shared in Brussels, then I would say it's irresponsible. And also, this is one of the factors that you fit into the feeling within this part of the world, when the feeling is that anything done against the so-called Islamists are legitimate. And this comes with a historical background. They look at Egypt, when the EU and European countries could not denote a coup.
Galip Dalay, I wanted to ask you just about that point that Marc Pierini made about for Turkey now. It's things like reinstating the death penalty, perhaps turning its back on EU membership and instead pivoting towards countries like Russia.
Well, I mean, first, Turkey's EU membership is going nowhere for a very simple reason. I mean, this channel is located in France, a country that has frozen many chapters that will basically, exclude Turkey's EU membership. So, therefore, we cannot talk about a process that was, de facto non-existent. On the other hand, the debate on that capital punishment, well, you can say that turning into a U.S. This is the country that has that capital punishment. Like, as personally, I don't think that it's a smart move to reinstate, capital punishment. I think it's not wise to reinstate the capital punishment. But even if they reinstate the capital punishment, you can make the comparison with the U.S. Why do you make comparison with Russia?
No, I was Marc Pierini was simply saying that we're seeing Turkey could look for friends elsewhere.
No, I don't think that Turkey is going that that far. I mean, the politics is only trying to respond to the public sentiment, because wherever you go, due to this horrible action of the last week, I mean the weekend, the people are demanding the reinstatation of the reintroduction of the death penalty and the capital punishment, and the government said that they will consider this, but also they said they will try to seek unanimity within the parliament, which is unlikely to be granted. So I don't think that we are going to see this.
Marc Pierini, one final question for you. That is, what's going to happen now with that deal between the EU and Turkey when it comes to migrants? Is that going to weigh on the criticism? Will Brussels perhaps hit the brakes when it comes to criticizing Erdogan in the interests of keeping that deal alive?
Well, that has been done in the past 9 months, as you know, in the discussions on the 5th of October, at the end of November, and then middle of March on the refugee deal, for the sake of getting to the deal, the EU leadership said very little about freedom of expression or rule of law in Turkey, which was already a concern for them. But now, with the specific issue of the death penalty, which I will remind our audience has been scrapped from the books in 2004 for the sake of starting the accession negotiation, that is an absolute no-go. And we've heard Chancellor Merkel, we've heard the French president, we've heard the EU institutions. So that will suspend or stop the accession negotiation. As Galip just said, this is probably not a tragedy, because these negotiations have been going nowhere for quite some time, and some of the requirements, the other requirements of these negotiations, are very difficult for Turkey at this stage in terms of rule of law, freedom of expression, and so on. So I wouldn't bet too much on that. Given this situation, I think the refugee deal in itself, if we look at the core of the deal, refugees and money for refugees in Syria, I think this will continue. Number one, because it doesn't have to be highly political. We are in a very tense situation in Turkey. The country has to recompose itself after this huge shock, and it was a huge shock. So, you know, the deal with the EU on refugees is much lower now on the political priorities. There is 3 billion euros. 2 of these 3 billions will have been allocated by the end of September. They're put to good use for health and food and lodging and education of the kids in the southeast of Turkey. And I think it's in the interest of both parties that it continues.
That it continues.
Irrespective of the underlying politics of it.
Of the underlying politics. Marc Pierini, I want to thank you for joining us from Brussels. Unfortunately, we're caught by the time. I want to thank as well Galip Dalay in Istanbul, Gökçe Piskin, who's joined us from the southern city of Adana, and Emre Demir. Stay with us. Our Media Watch segment is next. And there was so much more to say. There is so much more to say. Hence James Creedon's presence.
That's right. Just a quick look, François, at how this story has played out on social media. Of course, one of the topics that was being discussed very early on was the irony of a social media opponent, Erdogan, who has frequently taken social networks down anytime there are protests, etc., using FaceTime and other social media to call for support. That obviously got a lot of comments online. Since the coup failed, some hashtags have been trending on Twitter calling for the death penalty. I want death penalty is one hashtag that is trending on Twitter as Erdogan seeks to punish the plotters, as this headline puts it. What else have we seen? A lot of theories, maybe conspiracy theories even, regarding what may have been a coup that played into Erdogan's hands. Some even wondering, was he behind it? There was one hashtag, theatre not coup, which was started really by this tweet, which was from a Politico journalist who said that one of his sources really didn't believe that this was a coup at all, but that it was theatre. That led to a lot of comments on social media using the hashtag theatre not
And it sparked outrage in Ankara.
That's right. A lot of people saying utterly unfounded conspiracy theory, but that's the sort of stuff that you get on social media. Now, what else can we expect in the days ahead? WikiLeaks are apparently preparing to release hundreds of thousands of AK party emails. This is a tweet that they published today. They were supposedly going to release all of this today, Tuesday. The Erdogan emails, they're calling them 300,000 internal emails from Erdogan's AK party, and you can see there from the cartoon that we can expect it to not necessarily be very flattering for Erdogan, cast as a sultan bashing into an image of democracy. They do give some insight into what we might expect, saying that the mega leak will both help and harm the AKP. And why haven't we seen it yet? It is Tuesday. They said it was going to be released on Tuesday. Well, since yesterday they've been talking about a sustained attack on their network, which I can only imagine, is slowing down that data dump. So I suppose it'll certainly be more fodder for journalists in the days ahead, picking over what happened in the last week.
Are they doing
Turkey.
this in association with newspapers or on their own?
For now, no more details on it. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But for the WikiLeaks Twitter feed is not giving any more details for now. So
All right,
we'll have to wait and see.
Keep us posted, sir.
Absolutely.
I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.